there, and welcome to Barefoot Harvest. I am Shelby, and I'm going to take you on a little tour of our work in progress food forest. I know we concentrate so much on the animals that we don't talk about the plants enough, but I have a whole plan on making a food forest and we're working towards it. I'm so thankful for the property we did land on. We were super blessed with a lot of fruit trees and edible things planted already. And then we've been working on getting stuff in the ground too. We are on 2¼ acres. The whole back half is woods. And then we have a very large pasture where our goats are. We still have tons and tons of space. I used to think that I needed 10 acres to grow enough food for my family, but honestly guys, if you do it the right way, you can grow so much on 2 acres, even 1 acre, because we're not even using half of our space. All of our woods aren't even used, and it's a good portion of the property. So some of the trees were here on the property before we moved in, and then we've been slowly working on building that and adding to it. We are nowhere near to the capacity that we want to be, but we will get there. So I figured we would start at the very base minimum of the beginning so we can watch how far we go from here. So let's start right here in the front yard. Behind me, I have 2 what we think are plum trees, and they only put off 1 single fruit. So I think it may have been their first year fruiting, or they're planted in the wrong location. We did not plant these. They've been here. They were here when we moved in, and they're very mature size. So we're hoping that maybe it was just first year of fruiting and we'll get better next year. And then also this tree behind me, which ignore all the weeds. We need to get out here and get it taken care of. But this is also some kind of citrus tree. I don't know if you can see, but there is some very wrinkly looking fruit up there. And we don't know what it is yet. That's the first fruit we've seen on this tree since we've been here, but it's obviously some kind of citrus tree. This was also planted here when we moved in. So here is our citrus, some kind of citrus. And here is a plum that really needs to be trimmed back. There is a lot of weeds down here at the ground, which is such a shame, but they will go. All of this stuff is Bidens alba, which is just like a weed in the aster daisy type family. It just grows native here, and it is super, super medicinal, but it grows so much here that it is considered a weed to everybody else. So we will probably end up just whacking this all down so we have clear access to our trees, because they really need some attention. I don't know if they've ever been trimmed. There's the other one, the 2 plums I was talking about. As we move over, right at the front entrance of our house, we have this very huge established mulberry tree. As you can see, it is not the season anymore. This tree already dropped thousands upon thousands of berries, and soon it will drop all of its leaves and be completely bare. This mulberry tree alone gave us so much fruit this year that we had enough to share with the birds, and so much went to the ground for the animals just because we couldn't keep up. I'm talking thousands and thousands of berries. It was insane. So we ended up actually laying tarps down on the ground just to try to save some of them. And then of course the girls, I think I've shared video before of them climbing in this tree and gathering as many berries as they could and coming down with those. But that is definitely a tree that they love to climb. And I love that they can pick fresh organic fruit right off the tree and I don't have to worry about it. So guys, this area right here is definitely a work in progress. I know in the last video we talked about this pathway that we've been working on, but we actually planted a ton of sweet potato right here. And we've got some herbs waiting to go in the ground. Definitely some honest projects going on here. A little bit messy, but that's okay. I still have tons of plants and pots, as you can see. Kind of a bit messy right now. Yesterday was a huge planting day, so we have pots dragged out everywhere. Here is a Japoticaba, which it kind of died back, but it's coming back right here at the roots, and that's so exciting. I'll show you guys the sticker of that. The grape-like fruits grow on the bark of the tree. It's super cool. I will actually put a picture of a mature tree for you guys to see it, but we're super excited about that one. Yesterday we planted this little fig in the ground. I figured right outside our door. I love walking outside and picking stuff for breakfast. And then here we have a little guava that I also planted yesterday. We need to get all this area cleared and mulched, but I like putting the cart before the horse sometimes. And we also have this huge fig that we need to get in the ground. Not that we need them, but we brought these with us before we knew our property would have a beautiful blessed tree. But these are two mulberry trees that we need to get in the ground or sell. I'm not really sure yet. They did fruit for us last year because they're grafted and they are already producing berries. Here we have some dragon fruit that I need to get an arbor built for, and a pecan tree that I surprisingly haven't killed yet because it's still in the pot. But we planted this when we lived in the city, and I actually dug it back up, put it back in the pot, and it came with us. It died back. It was like 6 feet tall, but it is coming back to life, so I'm super happy about that. Here I have some banana trees that need to go in the ground. They are still in a pot, but right here, I put this little trellis here just to keep us from accidentally mowing it. But we have a little baby moringa tree. Excuse my hands, we just dyed all the girls' hair. So if you've never heard of a moringa tree, let me tell you a little bit about them. They are super, super medicinal, and every single part of the plant is edible, from the bark to the leaves to the roots. All of it is medicinal and edible. The amount of plant protein just in this tree is pretty amazing, rivaling up there with meat. So it's really great source of plant protein. And also it's awesome because you can eat it raw. It's got a tiny bit of spice to it, but you can also dry it and use it as a powder in your dishes. All kinds of ways to use moringa. It's definitely a staple for a Florida farm. So we just got this little loquat tree in the ground yesterday. We're going to come behind and mulch as soon as the weather permits, but it has been so hot. We have been staying inside and coming out for little bursts at a time, and mulching is a lot of work in the heat, guys. As you can see behind me, there is a beautiful passion flower vine. This guy puts off beautiful flowers for the pollinators. And then it also puts off a little round fruit. Let me see if I can find some for you. There's some flowers starting to die back. But it's a very tropical vine, and obviously it's a great grower. This is a completely ignored part of the garden. It's just growing on its own. And this was here when we moved in, and I'm so happy because I was so happy when we saw that vine, because when we moved, my passion flower vine was not the maypop. This is the maypop, and it's super medicinal. Mine was medicinal, but also more so the huge edible one that had really large fruits, and we loved it. But it was so big when we went to move, we lost it in the move because we could not. There was no way to move it. So that passion flower goes all the way over here too, and drapes over the front fence. This is our front gate, and it drapes over in the front too, so it's really pretty. That little guy is a loquat, and it is waiting patiently to be planted, but we have to kind of get this area under control. It's a very ignored area, so I wanted to get a loquat tree in here. And then right here is a very established arbor with Muscadine Grapes. And as you can see, it is super loaded down. We have already harvested from it, and we need to get out here again because they're super ripe. There is a dead or dying apple tree. I don't know. It's probably going to get ripped out because I don't know if there's any life really left in it. And it was like that when we moved in, and it's looked like that for a solid year. So here is our berry patch that was here when we moved in, and I've been working really hard to weed it. I have gotten most of it cleared out so we can see how many plants there are. We did have a tiny harvest from this a little bit earlier this year. There is another one of those little crabapple trees. As you can see, all the weeds are going over here in this pile, and I'm just going to let it compost right there. This tree, we don't know exactly what kind it is. We believe it's an orange. It didn't fruit last year, but it is this year, so that's super exciting. And obviously we have to wait for those fruits to turn, and then we will know for sure. But we think it's oranges. Here is a fig tree. This fig tree was also here, as well as this grapefruit tree. This is just a regular colored grapefruit tree, and it produces so well. We got a huge crop off of it last year. I mean, they get really big, so that was a really nice one to have. I love grapefruit. I just come out here in the morning, pick it, and put a spoon in it. It's great. Yesterday is when we finally started putting stuff in the ground. I have major paralyzation when it comes to planting, guys. I get so nervous about where we're putting things and what if I regret that spot, and sometimes it freezes me and my plants die because they sit in pots for so long because I can't decide where to put them. So I just finally said, you know what? I wanted a food forest. I don't care where they go. I just need to get them in the ground. Worst case scenario, I don't like where I put it, and I learn. And I either transfer it while it's small or we just live with it. How could I be unhappy with a tree that's putting fruit into my hands, whether I like the placement of it or not? So that's what I did, and that's what we've been doing with those loquat trees up front. We just put those in yesterday. So we put this little guy in yesterday too. It is a starfruit tree, and we really love starfruit. It'll obviously be a while, probably another year if we treat it right, maybe 2, it just depends, but we are super excited about that. And it has grown really well since we moved here. It was just in a bucket until yesterday. So these went in yesterday too. This is a persimmon tree. It has beautiful leaves, almost like a magnolia tree. That's what it reminds me of. We did get one little flower on here, and I pulled it off because I didn't want it to fruit. It's still so fragile and thin, but the fruit is just like a little orange ball, and it is so delicious. I highly recommend growing Fuji persimmons if you can. And again, like I said, we want to mulch this whole area. It's just kind of something we got to get to when it's not so hot. This is a full-size pomegranate, and this is what I was talking about with the planting paralyzation. This is a dwarf pomegranate, and it may be dead. I might be able to bring it back, but I'm thinking it's a goner because I left it in the bucket too long because I couldn't commit on where to plant it. I totally forgot to show you guys this. This lemon tree was one of our biggest and best producers in the front yard this year and overall. We had so many lemons, we were like telling people to just take them because it did so well. The lemons were so juicy that when we were following recipes, we had to use like fewer than half lemons to get the amount of juice these recipes were calling for. So it's like, say the recipe called for 4 lemons, and we got enough juice out of like 1.5. So I love them because I like making fresh lemonade. So this was the tree of the year last year. As you can see, it already has a ton of lemons on it, and we cannot wait to harvest. And it produces for several months. So a really great supply for us. So on our way into the backyard, there's this huge arbor. It's like a double arbor, and it is hosting this glorious muscadine. I think there's 2 plants, and I'll show you from the other side. So now I'm on the other side of the fence, and you can see how big this muscadine arbor is. Covers this whole area, and I'll show you it's loaded down with fruit too. These ones are much bigger than the ones up front and a little bit sweeter too. I mean, look how big those guys are. Those are huge. I mean, look how big that is. So these guys are a little seedy, but we just pop them open like this and kind of grab that fruit out of there and then ditch the peel. So here we have a peach tree. This guy did great. We got some fruit off of it this year. I'm pretty sure it was probably its first year of fruiting, but it did really well. And then over here, I do think we might have to pull this one up. It was here already when we moved in. It is a Belle of Georgia peach, and it was here when we moved in, but I'm pretty sure it's a goner. But just behind me, we have a very good producing grapefruit tree. This is actually a pink grapefruit tree, and it gives us big, beautiful pink grapefruit that I love so much. This is another one I just come out and pick to eat for breakfast. And then right next to it is another peach tree. I actually transplanted this peach tree when we were trying to buy the house because it was over top of the septic, and it was totally the wrong time to be transplanting it, so I was kind of worried about it, but it is alive and well and actually has grown quite a bit since then. So we're gonna walk on over to the orchard, which is really just the planned site of fruit trees that the previous owner planted, and he did it in the style that's like very typical, straight down the row with an aisle in between. This was not my plan for an orchard, but it works, and I'm not complaining because we got a dozen fruit trees out of it, and they're all producing age, so who could complain? So here is the very first tree, and this is a Fuji Apple. It did not flower, so we're just gonna watch it and give it a little bit of time. Growing apples is new to me because we're in Florida, but I'm hoping that the person who planted it here knew what they were doing, and we'll see if it produces, and if not, then we need to pull it out and put in another tree right there. Second in line is another peach tree that I actually transplanted before we bought the house, or immediately after we bought the house, because it was also over the septic tank, and we have an angel trumpet volunteer at the base of it, and I leave it because it makes me happy when I walk through the orchard in the morning and all these flowers are so huge and beautiful. I will probably rip it out when I get the heart to do it. So this is a pear tree. This is a Kefir Pear. It really needs to be trimmed. I mean, they all do. And this one did not produce this year, but the next two are also pear trees. And you can see we've kind of tied this one up because it was so heavy with fruit, it was fallen over completely to the ground. And this was like an Asian pear. It wasn't tagged, but we're pretty sure that it was an Asian pear, and it gave us quite a bit of fruit. So this is our pineapple pear, and oh my goodness guys, this is the tree that converted me to like pears. So it put off huge green pears, and they're crisp like a Granny Smith apple and really sweet. They weren't mealy or gritty like pears from the store, and it totally converted me to like them. Back here behind our duck coop is a huge mulberry tree, and it produced so much we also couldn't keep up, so we literally just fed it to the chickens and the ducks, and they were super happy about it. This is a fig tree. We got a handful of figs off of it this year, Figs are probably my favorite. I love them so much. Fresh, dried, however you want to do it. They're so delicious. The next tree is this cherry tree. It was beautiful last winter. It was covered in pink cherry blossoms and it didn't fruit, so I'm really hoping that it is capable. But it is an okami cherry. I'm really hoping it'll fruit for us. It was covered in blossoms, so maybe it just needed another year to get its stuff figured out. Next we have this peach tree. It's not doing as hot as the others for some reason, which is surprising because this one was not transplanted. It's been here. But something got that whole side of its leaves, but it seems to be recovering with these two new shoots. So our next tree right here is a plum tree. It is a Byron gold plum. The tag on here just looks like a Tractor Supply tree. And it did not flower or fruit this year. But again, this orchard is very young, so I'm not expecting much out of them. And then the last in the orchard is another plum tree. This one is a Methly Plum. And it did nothing this year. I take that back. We did have one single flower right here at the end, and then it did nothing. So hopefully next year we'll see a little bit more from that one. So we're walking past a very overgrown pollination station right here. But as you can see, the butterflies love it here. This whole bed was here before we moved in. And it's got glory bower, Indian shot, it's got like iris lilies, and all kinds of flowers that have popped up throughout the year. Look, there's another butterfly. It's so interesting to me because I saw a post in a homesteading group about a woman who was upset about her lack of butterflies this year. And I'm like, I think they're all here. I think they're at our property. But really, you just need to provide a lot of pollination stations for them and they'll be happy. All right, guys, so this is our last stop before we get to our woods back there. And there are some banana trees, but they're a little too young to fruit yet. And then this is a huge mulberry. I'm telling you guys, we are so set with the mulberry trees. Especially when I tell you there's more. That's another mulberry tree. And then this one right here on the end, behind all the dog fennel, is another mulberry tree before we get to our woods. Well guys, that is the majority of our food forest for now, all of the perennials and the trees. We still have a lot of work to do, a lot of stuff to put in the ground. We want to make this whole thing a back to Eden mulched garden of perennials and make it an actual food forest that we can walk through and just pick food as we go. This whole field that I'm standing behind right now is where our garden is going to go. There's the boys. They're looking at me like, are you going to bring me food? So this whole space right here will eventually be raised beds with pathways and a fence and everything to keep it nice and secure. Mama's little spot, you know. But we are ways away from making that happen. This grass is tough, guys. I know you saw how I tilled this whole thing if you've been here for a while, and oh my goodness, the grass is impossible. So I think we're just gonna have to do raised beds and tarps. But we did get a few things in the ground just for funsies. Some eggplant, cucumber, peppers, and some really pitiful looking watermelons. And hopefully they'll be okay. We're a little late getting stuff in. I really hope this encourages you to grow something just for yourself, just for your family. Grow something that you can eat, grow something beautiful. Just get your feet in the dirt, okay? We are harvesting so much more than just food when you invest in a garden. So I just want to encourage you to actually get out there and plant something. Even if it's a container garden, just do something. Even if it's a few little plants from the store, a little herb garden in your window, it's so satisfying to be able to grow something and you know where it came from, you know what you're putting into it, and when that harvest comes, it is so sweet. We definitely have a long way to go to get where I want this property, especially everything that's going in the ground now. It's going to look so different when we mulch it all in and we get it all under control. We build our little permaculture islands and create an understory and all of that good stuff. I'm so excited, so I hope you will stay tuned and follow along so you can watch our food forest develop, and then I hope you will be inspired to start your own. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you next time.